On July 20th, 1969, shortly after Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin had gone down in history as the first humans on the moon, they spoke with US President Richard Nixon from the White House in a live broadcast that was watched around the world. Yet conspiracy theorists have claimed three arguments with this that they say proves that the moon landings never took place. The first is that whilst Nixon is in the middle of the phone call with the Apollo 11 astronauts, we can see a photograph on the wall behind him of the Earth taken from the moon. And people have questioned how is it that Nixon could have such a photograph in the White House if the first humans are only just on the moon at that moment. Well, whilst Apollo 11 was the first mission to land humans on the moon's surface, it was not the first mission to send humans around the moon. Apollos 8 and 10 had already sent crews into lunar orbit, and the photo on the wall in the Oval Office is the famous Earthrise photo that was in fact taken during Apollo 8's mission in December 1968, a full 8 months before Nixon's phone call. Now, there are many books around which cover the whole space race in great detail, such as Shoot for the Moon by James Donovan. But we don't always have time to read books, do we? I mean, I've been halfway through this thing for months. But if you're like me, then you might want to check out Blinkist, who are the sponsor for this video. Blinkist lets you supplement your reading by allowing you to understand the key points of books in around only 15 minutes. They have thousands of non-fiction titles available to choose from on topics ranging from history and science to business and economics. And you can either read through the blinks yourself or it will read it to you as an audio book, and is available either online or through their phone app, so you can blink on the go.
The next stage, translunar injection, TLI.
I myself have just finished listening to Shoot for the Moon by James Donovan, and I for one hadn't quite realised the extent of requirements that were in place for the astronauts joining in the early days of spaceflight. And Blinkist Premium users can now take advantage of Blinkist Connect, which lets you share your premium plan with another person at no additional cost to either of you. So take a 7-day free trial today to try it for yourself using my link in the description below, and you'll also receive 25% off, as well as essentially receiving 2 memberships for the price of one, thanks to Blinkist Connect. Now, the second point that people have raised is how could Nixon have been speaking to people on the moon whilst he's on a landline phone? Since, as the name implies, landline phones send their signal through physical phone lines. Well, these people might be in for a shock if anyone ever calls their mobile phone from a landline. Yes, a landline phone can't directly phone the moon, but in Houston, the Capcom was in near constant radio contact with the crew throughout the entire mission. Nixon didn't pick up the phone and dial the area code for the moon. He merely phoned Mission Control in Houston, who patched the phone call into Capcom's radio feed, and so the phone conversation was just sent through the radio transmissions. Now, the call took place just before midnight in the US, and at that time on that date, the moon wasn't actually visible in the sky above Houston. So the radio feed was relayed to a tracking station in Australia that could see the moon, and transmitted the call to the astronauts, and then their responses would do the reverse, being picked up by receivers on Earth and relaying it back to Capcom in Houston, and then through the phone lines back to the White House. Which brings us to the third and final argument. For the phone call to make such a long journey, halfway around the Earth and then 250,000 miles across space, it would take some time, which would cause a noticeable delay between one person speaking and the other person hearing them. But it's claimed there was no delay in the conversations between Nixon and Apollo 11. Except that's just wrong. Watch the original recordings of the phone call and you can see there is around a 6-second delay from Nixon finishing talking to Armstrong beginning to respond.
All the people on this earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done, and one in our prayers that you will return safely to earth.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here.
The signal takes less than 1.5 seconds to travel between the Earth and the Moon. So Nixon finishes speaking. 1.5 seconds later, Armstrong hears his final words, has a pause of a few seconds to make sure that's the end of his actual statement. Armstrong then responds, and a second and a half later, Nixon hears it. I think where people get the impression that there's no delay is with the fact that Nixon begins responding as soon as Armstrong finishes speaking.
Honor for us to be able to participate here today.
And thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday.
Except what we're hearing is being recorded in the Oval Office itself. The audio's being recorded as Nixon hears it. We're hearing the conversation from Nixon's perspective, which is why we get a full 6-second delay hearing Armstrong, yet no delay from Nixon. Anyone that's ever had a video call will know that you respond the moment the other person stops speaking, but then there's a delay waiting for the other person to get back to you.
Are you talking right now?
Yeah,
I'm
trying to... Go ahead.
Yeah, this is...
And most of the time when this sort of footage is being shown in documentaries and the likes, the pauses are often cut out in order to keep the flow of the program going. So I think that covers everything regarding the Nixon phone call. Once again, thank you to Blinkist for sponsoring this video. And don't forget to check out their incredible offer in the description below. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already done so, then please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and then hopefully we will see you in the next video.